Stability is a death sentence. Modern life is so oriented around survival that we've forgotten how to experience pleasure. I love to take the example of young adults entering the world. We have this degree of uncertainty that we don't know where we're going to be, who we're going to be, and what we're going to do. And in response to this fear, we've decided to organize our lives because organizing our routines and our day-to-day activities must give certainty to our very, very unknown futures. And I can't deny that there's some truth to that. Building yourself up step by step and having these stable roadblocks around you will allow you to move the pieces in a more logical way to come to conclusions of outcomes that you want in life. But in doing so, we've lost such a degree of creativity and passion and spontaneity that is internally tied to our identities as humans. And if we were to go back 1,000 years ago, we could look at the wild adventures that we would have out in the wilderness, hunting beasts and collecting different stones and rocks and fruits. But now that has turned into a routine that is monotonous. And the ironic part about these routines is that they're seen as a mechanism for growth, because if I get up at the same time every day and do these lists of activities, then I must be working away at this stepwise equation to self-improvement. But more often than not, our greatest moments of self-improvement come through chaos. And this chaos is experienced often as children because we don't have such a rigid way of navigating through the world. So maybe it was going outside and putting some bug in your mouth and it made you sick, or you put your hand on a hot stove and you burned yourself. Well, as adults, we've learned to shy away from these experiences because they're immature or childish. And while it is important to look out for our health and our goodwill, in avoiding these formative experiences, we stagnate as adults. And so I challenge the status quo that we should continue to put ourselves in these uncomfortable situations. And oftentimes this can be seen as dating. We have a very organized way of going through relationships that it needs to be monogamous, or it needs to be orderly, or it needs to be long-term. And quite honestly, the relationships that I've learned the most from have been the ones that didn't last a long time, that weren't complete, that weren't necessarily what I wanted. But that taught me what I wanted out of love, and it taught me how I related to the world. And this search for chaos is incredibly important. Whether it's throwing yourself out of a plane, or getting in a fight, or traveling to an unknown country, that is where you test your true character, because in a routine, there is no pressure put on who you are. There's no weight to say, well, if the world throws these wrenches at you, how are you going to react? Because there's nothing being thrown at you. You have complete control. So how important and how strong are your morals? How developed are these skills that you spent so much time delving yourself into on a day-to-day basis? Maybe they don't even exist. And I remember I used to go on these little adventures when I had shoulder surgery, and it really hurt to walk. It was quite painful, but I remember when I was in DC, I went out into the woods in the middle of the night while it was freezing, and I walked 14 miles alone. And it was terrifying. And I was freezing my ass off, and I couldn't even move my arm despite it being in a sling. But this little experience of controlled chaos gave me insight into myself. It put me in this very uncomfortable position that I would have never seen myself in before. Because as I walked through the woods and saw these demonic shadows of deer and these homeless encampments that were honestly quite freaky, I began to realize that this bravery inside of me was now being tested, and I was able to put my self-realization to the test. And so as I walked through this darkness of the forest, I began to say, I am the boogeyman. Because instead of being afraid of the world around me, what if the world is afraid of me? What if I have this control of my perception of reality? And I love to run these experiments, and I encourage each one of us to do them regularly. Maybe it's exploring a relationship. Maybe it's going out on a date with someone you consider to be toxic. Maybe it's doing drugs with your friends safely. Because that allows us to tear away these sheets and these walls that we've spent so much time building up and return to this internal state of childhood. And exploring these unusual sides of life is not about being an outcast. It's about developing a character that can last through a storm. Because when adventure is your goal, then we begin to kill desperation. We begin to become stronger individuals that are better able to face the world. And that looks like being a better friend, being a better partner, being a better parent, because you will often get pulled in directions that take you out of your routine on a regular. But if you're never able to visit them, then you're never able to properly pivot. For example, I got in a car crash a few years ago, and because I had done a lot of MMA sparring at the time, I was able to calm my nerves, exit my car, and navigate the situation. If I had never gone out and done all these weird experiences, then I never would have been able to cool myself off in that moment. Because I'm able to eat my boogers at home, I'm better able to speak publicly, because what's the shame in being embarrassed when you know that you really have no shame at all? And so I ask of you to put yourself in these weird situations. Delve into these odd sides of yourself that feel wrong to experience, because not only will it make you a stronger person, but you'll actually experience more joy. Let's take music, a concert for instance. This is one of the best gateways into how we still have chaos in our day-to-day lives. This emotion that music creates within all of us is something that is instantaneous. It's something that bonds us with people around us and doesn't require some type of set and rigid routine. Throwing your head back at a concert is therapeutic because it allows you to express your internal human nature. But you don't have to designate this just to music, and it doesn't have to be just in a concert setting. It could be in the shower, it could be on your morning walk, it could be when you're cycling and you just decide to sing like a maniac. Let yourself loose. And now once you begin to let yourself loose, you will become stronger, because true strength is testing your characters in all avenues of life. And testing your character in the oddness and the creepiness and the disgusting parts of life will bring you true pleasure.